Hello, I'm Andrea Reece. I am a long-standing member of the review team at Love Reading for Kids, and I am delighted to be welcoming everyone to this special event with author Ben Miller. Now, as you can see, I have a co-host today, and that's Mia. Mia is a reading ambassador for Love Reading for Kids and a big fan of Ben's books. Well, a big fan of books in general, I think. So your other favourite authors, Mia, are Matt Haig, Julian Gough, Roald Dahl, and a certain William Shakespeare. So you're in good company, Ben. And I was very impressed to hear that all through year 4, Mia was helping in her school library and developed this brilliant way of matching fellow pupils to books that they'd really like, which is fantastic. I think you'd like to be a writer yourself someday, Mia, and you've certainly come up with some great interview questions, which we'll get on to. So we're both really excited to be talking to you today, Ben. Ben, you are the author of some of Love Reading's favourite magical adventure stories, including The Boy Who Made the World Disappear, The Day I Fell into a Fairy Tale, The Night We Got Stuck in a Fairy Tale, and Diary of a Christmas Elf, to name just 4. As well as being a top children's author, you're also an actor, a comedian, and a director. So your film credits include Paddington 2. Everyone has seen that film, haven't they? On TV, you've starred in Death in Paradise, and you're also the star of the detective series Professor T, Series 3, coming in the autumn. I can't wait.
That's right.
I know, I love that. Mums and dads, of course, will be thinking Armstrong and Miller, which was your BAFTA award-winning comedy series with Alexander Armstrong. But we're really pleased that you're here to talk to us about your new children's book, Once Upon a Legend, published, as all your books are, by Simon & Schuster. So a big welcome, Ben.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. And Mia, I'm so excited to answer your questions because they are absolutely brilliant.
They are very good, aren't they? Anyway, Ben, so your stories, they're always big on adventure, and Once Upon a Legend is certainly no exception there. It stars a boy called Marcus, who's sent to a very unusual school called Merlin's. I think most of us would really love to go to Merlin's, but Marcus is just dead set on being expelled. So he's getting up to mischief on his first night there with that aim in mind. And he accidentally sets in motion a series of events that cause him a giant problem and put all of mankind in danger. Ben, do you want to tell us a bit about the book? And then I think you're ready to give us a reading as well, to give us a flavour of it.
Such a brilliant summary, Andrea. Thank you. I love it. Gives him such a giant problem. Yes, because so just to set the scene a little bit, the Marcus, who's been misbehaving a lot at school, is sent to this special school, Merlin's, where you just can't misbehave, really. Whatever you do, the teachers seem to just encourage you to do more of it. So, if you throw paint around, they encourage you to do more of that. If you have a loud, sort of raucous rock band, they want it louder and more raucous. And it's very frustrating for Marcus. He can't seem to do anything that will get himself thrown out of this school. He discovers that there's a prehistoric mound in the school grounds. And as you're saying, at night, on his first night, he goes up there with the idea that he is going to infuriate the entire school. In particular, the headmaster of the school has a Merlin's cloak and a Merlin's staff that he likes to wear at school ceremonies. It's a bit of an odd school. And Marcus takes these things up there and little beknownst to him, breaks an ancient spell, and this prehistoric mound turns out to be a buried giant, and the giant raises from the ground. And of course, Marcus, to begin with, is terrified. But then Marcus realizes that the giant is just as frightened of him as he is of it, because he's dressed as Merlin. And it was Merlin who put the spell on the giants in the first place. And there begins this big adventure, because the rest of the sleeping giants, which it turns out all the other mounds all over Britain are also sleeping giants, they come to life as well, and they decide they want revenge on the humans for destroying the countryside. So Marcus then has to very quickly make some friends at the school and has to do his best to try and save the world from the giants. It's such a fun it's such a fun story. It was a really, really fun story to write, because one of the books I loved when I was a boy was the stories of King Arthur. So anything to do with King Arthur and Merlin was something that I always, those stories I always loved. And I wanted to write something that involved just a pinch of sort of King Arthur. And who doesn't like hearing about giants?
That's brilliant. Can you read us a little bit then, just to put us in the
I would
mood?
love to. So basically, I've got the book right here. So this very short reading is from the part of the story where Marcus has gone up onto the hill in the middle of his first night to cause some trouble, and he's broken the staff. He's broken this staff that the head teacher says was originally Merlin's staff, and little does Marcus know it, but he's broken the spell now that the giants have been under for hundreds of years. Here we go. What was it? An earthquake? No. School buildings around him were deathly still. The tarmac beneath his feet began to crack. It was the mound. The mound was moving. The mound was straightening. Help! Bawled Marcus as the flat ground beneath him began to bend itself upward. Marcus felt panic rising in his throat. He was going to fall. He was going to slide all the way to the bottom. He needed to get down fast. Dropping the broken staff, he spread his arms like a tightrope walker, wobbling towards the spiral path. But every time he took a step, the tarmac beneath his feet was tugged away like a carpet, and he went crashing to the ground. He crawled back to the flagpole, clinging on in terror as the mound below him uncurled itself, shaking free of earth and stones, and sat upright, revealing a colossal, ivy-haired, soil-caked, human-shaped head at the top of a ginormous back. Marcus watched in terror as the head turned from side to side, revealing two gargantuan eyes, squinting out from beneath eyelashes of overhanging ferns, two enormous nostrils exploring the breeze, and a cavernous mouth that opened suddenly in a colossal yawn, revealing two rows of terrifying boulder-like teeth. This wasn't a mound at all. It was a sleeping giant.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So that was Ben Miller giving us a marvellous reading from Once Upon a Legend, published by Simon & Schuster. Oh, that's really put us in the mood, I think. Brilliant. Mia, do you want to ask your first question at this point?
Yeah, sure. What gave you the idea for the main storyline?
Good question.
Well, that is a brilliant question, Mia. So I love finding real things, things in our world that remind me of magical objects. And I once read a story. I've once found my last book. I found a hollow tree, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could climb up inside this hollow tree and into your own dreams? And this time I was going for a walk very near me. I live in Gloucestershire, and Wiltshire's the next county, and we went for a walk on these hills in Wiltshire, and I saw a mound near Pewsey, and it was called the Giant's Grave. And I thought, well, this is amazing. What does that mean, the Giant's Grave? And there are other mounds very nearby. There's another mound at Silbury, which is just a few miles away, and a mound right in the middle of Marlborough, the town of Marlborough, and it's in the grounds of a school. And I thought, I wonder if this could make a story. And I read a little bit about the legends of the British Isles, and there's a story that the very first inhabitants of the British Isles were giants, and that when the first humans came to the British Isles, they had to fight the giants. And I thought, well, that would be great to write a story that begins with a battle between giants and humans, but that's all been forgotten, and the giants are now sleeping. And the fact that the mound was in the middle of a school kind of gave me the idea that Marcus should be sent to a special school.
Brilliant. Ooh, that all makes a lot more sense now. Yes, Mia, what's your next question as well, which is also to do with the thinking up the story?
What was your main inspiration behind the main characters?
Another really, really great question, because it's one thing to have a setting for a story, but the story only really comes to life when you have a good character. And the honest truth is I kind of always base my characters, or often base my characters on my own children. And my oldest son, Jackson, was he had a sort of period at school where he misbehaved a lot. And I remember once sitting with him in the headmaster's office, and the headmaster and he was just sort of smiling and staring out the window. And the headmaster was saying, what are you doing all this stuff? And I thought, oh, would it be great to have a scene like that in the book? And wouldn't it be great to have a character like he was at that time? So it's kind of based on my oldest son, Jackson. And then the main character, the main character, sort of the head teacher, I kind of sort of felt what we needed was, I kind of wanted to imagine a sort of school where you couldn't do anything wrong. You know how you always, the idea usually is that, you do something at school, you get told off, and you get some sort of punishment. I thought it'd be really fun to come up with a teacher who you just couldn't upset, who whatever you did, he accepted it because he wanted to get to the reasons you were doing it were more important to him than what you'd actually done. And so that's where the character of the teacher came from.
Brilliant idea. Do you check with your kids first? You say, oh, you might be in this book, or you've inspired it?
I do, and I haven't checked with Jackson. He's all right. I haven't mentioned it really until you asked the question. I hadn't really thought about where the character came from, to be honest. So now I need to check with him. He's okay with it.
Brilliant. Right, Mia, what's your next question? Which I think you've got a particular reason for asking this as well, have you?
So when you first introduced Colin, Marcus's stepdad-to-be, you named the car Betsy, which is also the name of mine and my mum's car.
No!
What
That's
made you
so
name the car?
funny. I think, well, I wanted the car to be a character in the story. The car is really, really important to Colin, because Colin's wife died a few years ago, and that was their car. And I wanted to kind of have a reason why he'd kept maintaining this car for so long, because it's an ancient car. Most people would have got rid of it ages ago, just got a new car. And I wanted to have a sort of situation where, to begin with, Marcus doesn't really understand his stepdad, and he just thinks he's a bit of a loser for having a really old car. And then when Marcus gets to know Colin, he learns that the reason he's kept this car so long is because it reminds him of his wife and the love that he has for his wife. And then Marcus starts to see Colin in a slightly different way. So I wanted the car to be a character, and I feel like for the car to be a character, it's got to have a name. And Betsy's a great name for a car, isn't it? As you guys have proved.
I think there'll be lots of cars called Betsy from now on.
Yeah.
Right, Mia, what's your next question as well, which is something we've sort of touched on, but there'll be more to it.
Most of the book is set in Wiltshire, where Stonehenge is found, also where Marcus and his mum drive past, as well as where me and my mum drive past in Betsy every time we go and see my granny.
Oh, that's amazing. This is a perfect book for you.
There are many beliefs behind how Stonehenge was built and why. Why do you believe Stonehenge is in its place?
Well, this is the wonderful thing, isn't it? Nobody will ever know, really, why Stonehenge was built. It seems to be, the theory at the moment is that it was a burial ground. In my story, Stonehenge was the council of the giants. So what we think of as those giant table-like stones were seats for the giants to sit on while they had their council. I really like that idea. And in my story, the giants built Stonehenge as their own council. So before there were ever humans in the British Isles, they built this. So it's kind of a bit like an assembly or a parliament for the giants. I really liked that idea. But one of the wonderful things about Stonehenge is much older, funnily enough, than the mounds. The mounds at Silbury And in real life, the mounds at Silbury and Marlborough, they're about 3,000 years old. Stonehenge is about 5,000 years old. It's one of the oldest structures we know of. We will never know why it was built. But I think some part of it, for me, has to be for the same reason we build cathedrals or we build other huge monuments. I think the same, we love human beings love tall buildings. They remind us of something. They speak to us of all kinds of things. But I think Stonehenge, it sounds like Stonehenge, it sounds obvious to say, it was a monument, was a place where people could go and say, oh my goodness, look how massive those stones are. A bit like when you go and see a skyscraper, you go, oh my goodness, look how tall that is. That's unbelievable. I think it was very much the same for prehistoric people. They were, this people in the Stone Age would say, come on, you fancy coming up to Stonehenge? And they'd go stand at Stonehenge and go, this is amazing. Who did this? So I think to be a place of wonder and awe,
I won't be able to think about it now without thinking about giants sitting on top of the stones, I think. When you're driving past me, you can go, oh, look, was that a giant?
They're benches. Yeah.
Right, Mia, now your next question, I think, is a really good one. So give us that one.
On the cover, it says there's a giant adventure in a zoo. What has been your best adventure?
The best adventure in my life, absolutely no doubt about it, is having children and having a family. That is an unbelievable adventure to go through, because it continually changes. My oldest child now, he's very nearly a grown-up. He's 17, and to have seen all the changes that he's gone through. I wrote my very first story for him when he was 7, 8 years old. That's when I started writing for children. I was writing for Jackson, and I've written stories for Harrison, my middle son, and for Lana, my daughter. Seeing them grow and change and the journey that they go on, that there's no bigger adventure than that. You see, to see a person change before your eyes and become somebody. And the strange thing is, when whatever age your children are at and however they are at that time, you can think back and you say, yes, of course, even when they were a tiny baby, I can kind of see how they were that person as a tiny baby, but I couldn't necessarily tell that then. But now I look back, I think, yeah, when Sonny was a baby, he used to do this, and that's still like something he does now. That is a huge adventure.
Brilliant. I wanted to pick up on that idea as well. I think it's such a lovely question, and what you've talked about as well, about children, is some of the appeal of writing for children, that you do get to go on these really big adventures and take them with you on these massive kind of things that you could never do in real life.
Yeah, exactly. I also really loved adventures when I was a child. I'd also always say to my friends, do you want to go on an adventure? And we would go, and that meant that we were going to go somewhere we hadn't been before, and we would have new experiences that we hadn't had before, and that we would share the excitement of it all. Sometimes feeling a bit scared about what we were doing, sometimes feeling amazed at some place that we found. And I grew up in the countryside. We also often used to go cycling on our bikes, and we'd go cycling out into the countryside, and we'd go find some new place, some new wood, some lake or something like that, and we'd have an adventure. And I think I love that. I really love, I feel like all humans are on an adventure, but it feels like children are on a very special adventure. They are discovering things for themselves for the first time. There's no better way to encapsulate that for me than in an adventure story, in a story that's sort of larger than life, where you get to be a little bit scared, you get to be a little bit excited, you get to feel a little bit of amazement, a little bit of wonder. But most of all, you realize that on your own, you have it in you to succeed, that you have it in you to triumph over anything. You've just got to you've just got to figure it out, and you've just got to find that within you. And I think those are just, for me, I just love writing those stories, and I love reading those stories. I still like reading adventure stories now. I mean, I find them absolutely thrilling.
Excellent. I like the way that you use these kind of larger than life plots to look at real life issues for children and explore some of them as well, I think.
Well, that's the other thing for me. It's got to, for me to I really want my readers to really connect on an emotional level. I really want them to feel that they are having something, that they are living out, able to live out something that they otherwise wouldn't be able to live out through the story. And the other side to this story about Marcus and the giant is that Marcus's parents are splitting up. He feels a lot of anger about that. He's pushed all that anger right down because he doesn't want to show it at all, because he wants his parents to come back together. So he wants to pretend everything's okay. So he's pushed all this anger down, and this anger is building up in him. And in a way, the releasing the giant for him also helps him to release all his feelings of, because he doesn't feel like he has any power. And when this giant, huge, powerful giant emerges, he suddenly feels like he's able to, as well as reasoning with the giant, almost sort of reason with himself about the strong things that he's feeling. And I think that you always sort of want a story to have two meanings, don't you? You kind of always want that outer journey of the story to be super exciting, but the inner journey for the character as well has got to somehow mirror what's going on in the outer journey, and mean something to the person who's reading it, and make them feel something,
Yeah. So while we're talking about writing, Mia, do you want to ask question 7?
Oh, is it different writing book versus writing for television or films?
It's so different. I mean, the first thing that's different is you never have to, in fact, it's bad in writing for TV and films to describe the setting of a place. So, for example, if you're writing a scene between some giants at Stonehenge, you would just write exterior Stonehenge, the famous monument, or something like that. And you say, some giants fight. And then most of what you write would be the dialogue between the giants. Mostly when you write for film and television, is you're writing dialogue, and you have very little of anything else. And it couldn't be more different, because you can't go inside the characters unless a character in a film or TV show tells you how they're feeling, or you can see how they're feeling. You're watching everything from the outside. Whereas when you're writing a story, first of all, you have to describe the whole world through that character's eyes. So if I'm Marcus describing Stonehenge, I'm describing how Stonehenge feels to Marcus, just to Marcus looking at it. Not, it's not a kind of, you're so inside the main character when you're in a place. But also you can go inside Marcus's head, and you can know what Marcus is thinking, and you can know what Marcus is feeling in a way that you can't really do that in film and television. That's one of the things I love about writing these stories, is I get to go right inside the characters. I can see what they're thinking as well, and you get the story inside and the story outside. Whereas really on film, you can only really tell the story outside.
I think that's interesting for you, Mia, isn't it? Because your next question is another question about writing.
As a young writer myself, what is the best advice you would give to beginners?
Well, I always think that the lucky start that I had was my parents were English teachers, and I read and I read and I read. I read every kind of book you can imagine. I read, all the children's stories you can possibly imagine. But I also started to read things like Dickens and Jane Austen, and like you, I really loved Shakespeare from a very, very young age. Lots of my stories borrow little bits from Shakespeare stories. In fact, I've got this one, How I Became a Dog Called Midnight, particularly borrows from Shakespeare. It borrows from Twelfth Night. it's reading. I think reading is one of the most important things you can do. The more different things you can read, the more different stories you can read. Reading is incredibly important. And I read, obviously I read, or still read a huge variety of things. I like non-fiction, I like fiction, I like biography. I love to read as much as I possibly can. I think that is the best gift you can give yourself. And then as a writer, don't be afraid to start now. You can start writing your stories now, start writing and developing the kinds of stories that you love to tell. And I always think there's kind of 4 elements that's really, really great to have in every story. And everyone talks about a beginning, a middle, and an end. Those are sort of really important. I like to figure out what my ending is and then work back from there. But there's another really important part, which is a twist. It's great to have some sort of twist, some sort of point where things change. Things change in some extraordinary way for the main character, and you're really free to choose any kind of twist you like. Maybe a character that they thought was good is really bad, or maybe a story that you thought was taking place in the normal world is really happening inside a snow globe. But it's great to have some kind of surprise for the reader as well. I think that's really important.
Brilliant. So you're definitely on your way with the reading, Mia. So now you can find twists to put in all the stories that you're writing. Yeah. Brilliant. I think Mia wanted to ask about new books coming up as well. And in particular, yes, will there be another Harrison and Lana adventure?
I'm sure there will. I mean, I love writing about my own children. I'm kind of alternated books, so I tend to write a story about Harrison and Lana and then write a story with different characters. So yes, probably the next one I go to, actually the next one I'm writing at the moment, that's not a Harrison and Lana story, but I have one in mind that I really, really want to write. Hopefully I'll get to do that. Hopefully I'll get to do that next book 1. Because you have to the thing about books and publishing is you have to work quite a way in advance, because the whole process takes much longer than you'd think to put the book together and get the book illustrated and make sure the book is the absolute best it can be, and then for it to get printed, all that's quite a long period. So I tend to work quite a way in advance. So my next story is not a Harrison and Lana one, but I think the one after that is.
Right. And you wanted to ask about the elf books as well, didn't you? Yeah.
You have a new elf book coming out in October. Do you like writing about Christmas, and is Christmas your favourite time of the year?
Definitely. I've always loved Christmas, and I love writing my Christmas stories. So as you're right, I've been writing these elf books. They're diaries of a Christmas elf. I've been writing one every year. This is the 3rd of the 3. It's called Adventures of a Christmas Elf. So the first Christmas Elf story, which is actually they're up here, this one, Diary of a Christmas Elf, that's written by Tog, who's a Christmas elf. He's a wannabe Christmas elf. He hasn't quite made it yet as a Christmas elf. It's the story of him making it as a Christmas elf, and then it turns out there are some baddies who are trying to steal Christmas, and so he and his friend Holly get together and manage to save Christmas. In the second book, it's another diary, but it's from Holly's point of view. Holly is Father Christmas's daughter, and she's writing a story about the fact that it's hard as Father Christmas's daughter because, everyone expects her to sort of know everything about Christmas, but she's learning just like everyone else, and she feels like she has to really earn her place in the workshop, and that she has quite a tough time. Again, there's another attempt to steal Christmas, and she manages to save the day. She builds a robot Father Christmas to save the day, which was particularly fun to write. And the 3rd one, which is the final one, this is a diary. It's really about, Tog is writing the diary, but the story is really about Father Christmas. And Father Christmas discovers, again, there's another plot to steal Christmas. And in fact, there's a plot to kidnap him. So he goes to the Maldives to basically a sort of desert island for a holiday just before Christmas, and of course, Father Christmas is the last person who can deal with having a holiday and being on a beach and all the rest of it. So it's very funny from that point of view. And then there's a very big climax where all the goodies and all the baddies get together at the end.
Great. Well, that's given us lots to look forward to. I'm keeping an eye on the time because I think we've got less than 2 minutes left.
Oh, wow.
The questions have been too good, and Ben, your answers have been too good. So very quickly, Ben, what's it like hearing a reader like Mia telling you how much she's enjoyed the books?
It's just wonderful. It's so exciting. So of course, a lot of the stories, they spend a lot of time in my head. I don't get to talk to anybody about them, and it's particularly exciting. Mia's the first person I've spoken to about my new book.
Brilliant.
Nobody's, as far as I'm aware, she'd be one of the very few people to have read it. So it's really exciting to talk to somebody who's read the story for the first time, and to get an idea of how she's responded to it that's really wonderful. But Mia, it's just wonderful that you're so into books, really. Yeah. It doesn't beyond the fact that we've been talking about my books, we've also talked about how important it is to reading across the board, and your enthusiasm for reading is the important thing. Absolutely. And that will take you to some great places in your life. There's one thing we know for sure: the more you read, the more rewarded you are later on in life.
Yeah. And that's a brilliant point for me to say thank you very much, Ben. Thank you, Mia, for your brilliant questions. And to remind everyone that Once Upon a Legend is out now, published by Simon & Schuster. It's got amazing illustrations as well by Elisa Paganelli. You can buy it now from Love Reading for Kids. And if you do that, you get 10% off the RRP, and you get the opportunity to donate 25% of the price of the book to the school of your choice. So more reading will be prompted by everyone who buys it. So thank you so much, Mia, for your brilliant questions to Ben, which really picked out some brilliant answers from him as well. I feel that we've got a really good sense of the book now and why he likes writing them and why he chooses to write in books and for children. So I'm going to hand over to you now and just tell us why you like Once Upon a Legend so much and why you'd recommend it to people.
So I really enjoyed this book, and I read it in just 2 days because it was really hard to put down and full of suspense, and it was a real page turner for me. I recommend it to everyone of all ages, including adults, because it was just once again really hard to put down, and I find it really amusing. It's a book that you can read at all times, and it's just got amazing illustrations. The whole book makes sense, and I feel like there's absolutely nothing to say about it except that it was absolutely fabulous and amazing.
You know what? I couldn't agree more. I think that is a perfect summary of the book. So we'll both now be going out and recommending Once Upon a Legend by Ben Miller to everyone we meet. Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed.
Welcome.